So hello and welcome to the return of the Racehour podcast, brought to you with our friends at Gambling.com, Paddy Aspel, Dermot Nolan and myself, Dean Ryan. And we're going to take a look now at the first part of our Ante Post Cheltenham previews. We're going to start with the Champion Hurdle. It's a fascinating race this year, and perhaps not an open-shut case because we've seen quirks now in the top end of the market. And we've got to start with Buveur. Dermot, I'm going to come to you first. I know you're a massive fan of the horse, but what have we seen this season that we perhaps haven't seen before? He's been beaten, obviously, but he was devastating against Sam Crow, and then it kind of all went wrong behind Verdana Blue.
It did, but there's also an argument that kind of has to be made that he probably just hasn't been at his best at Kempton ever. I mean, he's made hard work of beating the new one the year before that, kind of was bustled along like he kind of was in that race and went away. He's just always got away with it. I mean, he bumped into a horse who absolutely loves Kempton, loves a fast track like that in Verdana Blue, and Barry Geraghty put his hands up after the race and said, look, I have no complaints. I'd go along with that. He's not at his best there. I mean, his best performance every year is arguably really the Aintree Hurdle, where he has that bit more ground to kind of leave himself down. He adores the hill, and he has to be one of the most disrespected horses that there has been, in the fact that we're dealing with a horse here whose major loss was the Supreme Novices, when Noel Feely arguably gave him a kind of a half decent ride only out the back and he flew home. But Min and Altior were ahead of him that day. He's gone on since to win 2 Champion Hurdles, 2 Aintree Hurdles, win everything all around him. And he's just an absolute superstar. But definitely, Dean, this is the year I'd be kind of leaning towards taking him on, because I've always had a theory, as you know, that racehorses, unless they're freaks, only have a certain amount of time at the top level, regardless of how young they start. And I think with Buveur he could well do it again, and he'd more deserved it. He has a favourites chance. I just think we might be approaching that kind of a small decline with him.
Yeah, I thought we were seeing a small decline when he only got the better of Melon by a neck in last year's race. And then I thought, no, Bouverdare's back, smashes Sam Crow. And then I thought, oh, here we go again.
Sam Crow's done nothing really though, has he?
But we didn't know that at the time, did we? We kind of thought Sam Crow could be allowed one below par run, and then this was the big race where he'd take it up with Bouverdare, and then we saw him get put in his place. So, Paddy, the favourite is Bouverdare, 6-4 at the minute. That looks a bit of value for a dual Champion Hurdle winner where the rest have got something to prove, but maybe it isn't.
Yeah, mate, and I suppose one thing you've got to respect, Dean, is this horse's festival record. He's been to the festival 3 times, 2 wins in a place. He's a fantastic animal. And I think I would agree with Dermo that he was unlucky the last day, because Verdana Blue has, for a National Hunt bred horse, has got a fair bit of toe and a fair bit of boot and can actually quicken. And it just caught him out a little bit the other day. Nonetheless, it was a little bit disappointing. You couldn't get away from that. But really, it was the first time he's disappointed, really, since he's come on the scene as a very good animal. But, I mean, at the weights, he's 172. I mean, he's not miles ahead of some of them here. I mean, last year's second, Melon, is 164. But for me, I think this year, on what I've seen of her and the jockey's reaction the last 2 times he's ridden her, I think it's going to be Apple's Jade if she turns up for the Champion Hurdle. Have we any idea if she's going to turn up?
I don't think they're going to do that, Paddy. I mean, I know there's massive clamour for it, and you've just added to that now in terms of if Apples has turned inside out and put, very average 2-mile form. If you go back to, beaten by Rashan, beaten by Irving over 2 miles, and then stepped up and trip, looks a completely different mare. I think if she turns up, she'll get beat, but I can understand why, on what we've seen this season, she looks like a different animal. Dermot, where are you on Apples Jade?
It all hinges, doesn't it, on the Irish Champion Hurdle? I mean,
very much so.
If she comes out and hammers them, well, then yeah, she's a different mare. But I can more than see the argument, and I say this in the blog, I can more than see it. It definitely will come down to that. But I just think Michael O'Leary and Gordon Elliott, I don't think they care. Like, I genuinely think that if they thought she was going to win that old charity race, she probably would be in that. I don't think they care what race they win at the Cheltenham Festival, as long as they have a winner. And I think she'll more than likely go there. But if she comes out and absolutely hammers them in the Irish Champion Hurdle, and just for the record, I'd be taking her on in the Irish Champion Hurdle, I'd agree with you. I don't think she's that quick, but she's not slow either, to be fair to her. But she'd have to come out and hammer them, Dean, really, for them to have a rethink.
Paddy, there's every chance she does come out and win that Irish champion hurdle at the Dublin Racing Festival, and then we end up with a massive dilemma for connections. But, Derma made the point that they're just interested in winning a race at the festival. They have a penalty kick, or potentially a penalty kick, although she got beaten it last year, or they go for the big pot. You'd argue to go for the pot.
Yeah, that's the disappointing side of it, isn't it, really? Because I think the way she's come back this year and the performances she's been putting up, I think she deserves a crack at it. But Dermo's absolutely spot on. Chances are, if there's going to be a much softer option there and it gets them a winner on the board, that's probably the path they're going to take. But I really wish they wouldn't, because I think she more than deserves her chance at it. The sort of performances she's put up this year, but like I say, it's probably doubtful, but we'll have to wait and see.
We might find out a load more in just a couple of weeks' time, of course. They might completely change their tune. Laurina is in a similar position, doesn't have to go for a champion hurdle, is in there as second favourite, 3-1. Willie Mullins, they all seem to be talking about Laurina is going to go for a champion hurdle. Dermo, would you have Laurina in the pecking order here? I know in the betting, second favourite. I got a lot of question marks, I think.
Yeah, I have a lot of question marks. I loved her last year. She was outstanding in that Mayor's Novice Hurdle. I don't think she's the cleanest at her hurdles. She showed that last year in the last at Cheltenham and at Fairyhouse just after. She kind of tends to run through them. I think a small bit, they might get in her way. I think she'd be a serious chaser. She's some engine, like she's a tank. She really is. And clearly she's working the absolute house. So the absolute house at home. Like when you look at the fact that Willie Mullins to say after one run at Sandown in a 2-runner race for him to say that he thinks she'll go in it straight to Cheltenham now and that Ruby Walsh will ride, like that's a massive statement for Willie Mullins to say. He tends to not say that, as Ruby said after the race, so you shouldn't listen to him that much either. But it still is a massive statement. But as far as dominating a Mayor's Novice division goes, Dean, and then winning 2-runner race against a horse that wouldn't finish 10th in a champion hurdle, I struggle to see where the value is at 7-2. As much as I like her and as much as she could be something special, I think you'd want your head examined to be backing her at 3-1, 7-2, definitely.
She has to do a lot more for me. So far, I want to see a lot more to be getting involved at those prices. Paddy, I'll throw Laurina at you, and I'm also going to throw at you Sharjah, who's turned out of recognition, or perhaps just fulfilling all the potential we've seen before. And Melon, of course, who's had a comeback run, which I thought looked promising enough in terms of lining up for the champion hurdle again. Let's throw those three into the mix.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, look, the top and bottom of it with Laurina is, apart from falling on her debut over in France, she's unbeaten. Now, she is unbeaten. The last run at Sandown was a non-event. And the fact that the handicapper actually had the cheek to put her up from 152 to 155 off the back of that performance, I mean, I don't know why he even assessed her, but nonetheless, it's irrelevant. But we didn't find out anything only other that she's alive. So, we were a little bit in the dark there as regards sort of where we're at with her. But, I mean, she's only actually run 6 times. That performance at Cheltenham, like Dermo said last year, I mean, it was unreal. Just trying to look at the distances now, because it was 18 lengths. 80.
Yeah, she lapped them.
18 lengths, in a grade 2. Unbelievable. I know she was priced up to win well, but still, it was a hellish performance. What were the other ones you mentioned?
So Melon and Sharjah, I think they're probably the ones that are entitled to be at the top of this table. Melon we've seen come back. Sharjah's come back and won nicely. So we're looking at 2 very interesting runners for this. If Buveur was below Bouveur's normal standard, they'd have to be high on the list. Yeah,
I mean, Sharjah has only been to Cheltenham once and was fairly underwhelming, to be honest. I mean, they're both rated 164. Look, Melon, that was a real good effort at the festival last year. But nonetheless, I am a little bit worried what Dino mentioned earlier, just about, because I've looked at Mullins' stats, and it's not so much how the horses are running is the fact that he's not having many runners. You know,
Yeah, he's quiet.
He's really. It looks like he's really sorting through the ones that he's very, very sure and happy with, that are actually fit and healthy and are going to actually turn up and give their running. I mean, he's only had. I looked a few minutes ago. I mean, look, his stats aren't horrific, but for a stable of that size, the numbers are down runners wise, and it is slightly worrying. But we always see it leading up to Cheltenham. The markets tell a lot about that yard, don't they? As regards who's going to turn up and who's not. So people have got to. You've just got to keep a close eye on it, because it is a yard which, you know, come Cheltenham time, it really can frustrate an awful lot of people, because, you know, Willie Mullins is saying one thing, but the market is actually telling you the truth. So it can be.
And we saw that with Melon last year. I mean, it was an almighty punt on the day as well.
Yeah, this is it. So I think this yard in particular, sometimes you can gauge more by actually being guided by the market rather than the quotes that you're going to get online on the TV or whatever. So you've got to tread carefully.
Dermo, I'm coming to you, and what I want you to do is to wrap your head around those two animals and give us a selection. If you were punting today in the Champion Hurdle, where would your money be going? And Buveur is a fair answer. I think there's still a bit of juice in that price if you think Buveur is going to be crowned again.
Yeah, Dean. I mean, the gas thing I see here is that, you know, Arctic Fire won the County Hurdle off 158. Could you imagine if Laurina ran in it off 155? Can you imagine how many sore heads there'd be after that? But definitely Melon. The one problem I have with Melon is that Melon's only won 2 races in his whole career, despite all the chat we've had about him. He's won a terrible maiden hurdle and a WKD hurdle up and down Royal. I think Rasham was second to him that day. Apart from that, he hasn't managed to win another race, apart from some huge runs. I just don't see really where the improvement's going to come enough, considering Nicky Henderson did say that Buveur had a bad season last year as far as work went. So if Buveur is back to some bit of himself again, I don't see Melon turning that around. Charge has made hay while the sun has shined in regards to the fact that the division over here is quite weak. Super Sunday is too slow. Melon needed the run. So I think Charge has been kind of picking up as brilliant as he has been and as impressive. I just struggle to see how a horse that finished 8th in what was a weak Supreme Novices Hurdle can now kick on and all of a sudden be a Champion Hurdle contender. Is something that I'm kind of questioning. When you go down further through it, Brain Power, no. Super Sunday, as I said, he's too slow. And the two that kind of interest me, and I have had small bets on them, is Espordalen and Saldier. Now, only 2 horses age 5 years old, have won this race since 1985. So I'm not exactly on the stats side here, but Espordalen has been brilliant, won really well last time at Limerick. That was a serious time. Simon Rowlands put it up and said that he is a Champion Hurdle contender based on that. He absolutely kicked Morning Ireland aside, or Stormy Ireland, absolutely kicked that horse aside, and that horse had won really well before that. So it's not for him to be sniffed at, as far as they are still 4-year-olds though who ran in that race. And Salday, I thought, had the beating of Espordalen that day at Naas. Now he hasn't been seen since. I'm hoping that he is okay. I think he fractured a cheekbone that day, but they've always taught a lot of Salday, and that win at Punchestown Festival last year was really strong. They're both 33-1 or so, and I just think there's much worse each way bets, because I'm kind of dismissing the next 4 or 5 in the market. You've got Buveur and I think it's anyone's race for the places, or even to surprise the favourites. So 2 outsiders, 2 5-year-olds, Espordalen and Salday, and if either of them win, you can find me in the Guinness tent on the Tuesday day.
Yeah, send your checks in care of the Racehour and Nolan if that comes off. Paddy, I know we talked about Apple's Jade. If you were going to get involved in this market right now, if Apple's Jade was going to run, I assume you'd be all over the 12-1. But as we don't know,
I mean, look, I think Dermo is right that she isn't going to turn up. It's just a bit. It's a bit of a dream, really. I just think on what I've seen of her this year, and just Jack Kennedy's reaction of the feel he's probably been getting off her. I just think she's better than ever. So I really wish we could see her. I have been impressed with the Irish horse of Gavin Cromwell's Espordalen. I mean, the only time this horse ran in a Grade 1, that's the last time it was beat, so it was found out there. But the horse that won that race, he's come out and beat him this year since. So Gavin Cromwell is doing a fantastic job with this horse, and he's probably, the handicapper's probably underrated this horse a little bit at 155. I think, because they've placed him very well, and he looks like a horse who is really on the improve. And I mean, at the prices, he's probably represents pretty decent value, to be fair. But simply because I know Gavin Cromwell's an up and coming trainer, but it's he's a smaller stable compared to some of the gigs who are going to be turning up here. So that would be an interesting one if he was to hold that entry.
Yeah, fascinating. And like Dermot said, it's hard for a 5-year-old, but Gavin Cromwell, he does remarkable things with the few that he has, and he's hugely well respected. Very interesting shout. I'm a Verdana Blue fan. I did think that she would get close to Buveur. I didn't actually expect her to beat Buveur at Kempton, but at 12-1, there's a sniff of value left in that price. I'm fascinated to see whether Buveur can go and get this done for the third time. Look, lads, it's been a pleasure having you back on the return of the race hour, of course, brought to you with Gambling.com. Paddy Asport and Dermot Nolan, thanks very much. We'll do it again next week.
Check out Gambling.com today for up-to-date horse racing trends, betting news and strategy guides. Take advantage of our exclusive bonus offers for the biggest online bookmakers and casinos. At Gambling.com, we write daily tipping pieces on the biggest sports. We find the best prices so you don't have to. Make placing a bet easier. Visit Gambling.com today.